I want to ask you about St. Louis. You know, when you think about wrestling legends from the area, you inevitably land on Harley Race. And I think about Harley Race every time I'm in St. Louis. And I wonder who would be the Harley Race of AEW and why is it Jon Moxley?
It was Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
Jon Moxley. He's won the most championships. He's traveled the world. He's a hardened veteran. He's from the Midwest. And he's a straight shooter, and he's a great person who's respected by his peers, who takes no gruff and is so respected as a pro wrestling veteran. And actually, many times in Jon Moxley's matches, I've observed it was like watching a great Harley Race match, or even some of Harley Race's great matches in Japan. Remind me of some of the great Jon Moxley matches. So there's a lot of great influences and a lot of great wrestlers that contribute to Jon Moxley, but Jon Moxley's also an incredible, very unique personality in the world of pro wrestling who I think it's really cool that he draws comparisons to such a great champion like Harley Race.
Well, just his character and the way he goes about his business and just his performances and his leadership, it just feels like he is the Harley Race of AEW. I want to ask you kind of an off-the-wall question. Who's the one person that wasn't with you in the very beginning of AEW, in front of the camera, behind the camera, whatever you think, that changed the scope of the company that led us to this point in 2025? And I'm specifically looking for people that maybe fans don't hear enough about, the unsung heroes of AEW behind the scenes, who really you think, man, I can count on this guy and he's going to do a great job.
Well, there's some great people. You said one. You're making
Sure.
So I can.
Well, name a few if you'd
Okay,
like.
that'd be great. That'd be great. And because I think, first of all, you mentioned Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley, when we announced AEW, was not actually with us.
Right.
And it came to be that he was on the first show. So he has been at AEW since the very first show.
Absolutely.
And he's been on every AEW event since then as a featured wrestler since the very first night. But Jon Moxley was a surprise at the end of the first show, and we didn't know he was going to be there at first. That worked out incredibly well, but that was very fortuitous. Samoa Joe is somebody that came in 2022, and in just 3.5 years has accomplished a resume in AEW that is unique and unmatched unto himself, being former AEW world champion, former multiple-time TNT champion, and the current World Trios champion, dominant, undefeated, reigning World Trios champion, trying to get the world title back. And to have somebody like Samoa Joe arrive in a company that's been around for a few years, that was incredible.
Sure.
Bryan Danielson is a big part of the AEW shows and a big part of the AEW team. Last year here in St. Louis, in this very arena, he wrestled an incredible match against Will Ospreay. He's had so many incredible matches since he arrived, and had that great match in New York against Kenny Omega at the first Grand Slam, down to his final match against Jon Moxley exactly 1 year ago at Wrestle Dream that put Bryan on a stretcher. I hope someday maybe Bryan could return to the ring. He's never 100% ruled it out, but I'm really proud that we're able to say that Bryan's personal favorite memory in a wrestling ring in his illustrious career, to have Bryan Danielson arrive into AEW, because we had a great group from the very beginning of great people, including so many great people with since the very first show, and people we knew that would be with us. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley came in at the very beginning and had all these great people involved, and great people backstage, and people that have been with us for years, and people in the production, in and out of the ring, people you see on TV or backstage that have been there since the beginning, like QT Marshall and Sanjay Dutt, and of course, on screen, the voice of AEW from the beginning and the voice of pro wrestling for so many years, Jim Ross, from the very beginning. Tony Schiavone technically was not on the first pay-per-view, but he was there from the first year on the first Dynamite.
First TV show, he was there.
So he's been the TV all along. Tony Schiavone, a huge part of it. So many great people. And I'd be remiss I will be remiss, because there's going to be so many people. I'd be here all day because all the people that have been in AEW, but there were a lot of people from day one. And to have these great people, but then people that have come in along the way, timeless Toni Storm.
Oh, man.
What a great sign. And she arrived as a great champion in wrestling already. Toni Storm, a big free agent, and I loved working with her. She was clearly somebody that we could build around and be a great star. And she's wrestling in a match this weekend against somebody that's been with us since day one, basically, since our first year again. Chris Statlander. And Chris Statlander here since 2019. And somebody that has really earned that position as world champion, face of the franchise. Chris Statlander won the world title at our last show, All Out, in a 4-way match, pinning Toni Storm and earning the title, but they've never had a one-on-one match. And it's the former champion, the most decorated champion ever in AEW, somebody who definitely fills the credentials of what you said, somebody that wasn't here at the beginning but arrived and is now an indispensable part of AEW and the history of AEW, and that's timeless Toni Storm. And Chris Statlander had been here the whole time, and they had this incredible chemistry. And when they've been in matches at the same time, I could see it. And they never had a one-on-one match. And that's by design as a matchmaker, because I always knew it would be a huge match on an event like this weekend with Wrestle Dream. First time ever one-on-one. The champion, Chris Statlander, who's been here as a homegrown star and has earned the position and is one of the greatest wrestlers in the world at the top of her craft, Chris Statlander, versus the star of stage and screen, and timeless Toni Storm, who not here at the beginning, and then when she did come in, she had a great reputation, and her reputation and her things evolved with Toni Storm. And it's cool because Toni Storm was, even from the first year she was involved here, was a big star. But then after that, she took some time in her second year to film a movie, Queen of the Ring, about some of the history of women's wrestling. And I started to think about timeless Toni Storm, and I said to her, do you ever watch old movies? And she said sometimes, and she's very young. She's still in her 20s.
Yes.
And this was several years ago when she was in her mid-20s. And I was saying, hey, Toni, have you ever seen All About Eve or Sunset Boulevard? And she said no. And I said, okay, these are movies. I had this idea for you, and I think there's something inside you that you could tap into and unlock. And it really worked out. And I had a story worked out that was very similar to All About Eve. Elements of the Betty Davis, which I think she's like that. She's young now. It's like young Betty Davis, but now she's tapped into the thing that's inside of her. She's this great performer. She's found and connected with what is the transcendent gimmick that has unlocked the wrestler, which is always that thing you want to find, but it's also something she'll be able to do for so long. And she's got so much experience. For somebody in her 20s, this is somebody that's already had 15 years of wrestling experience and regained the world title in her hometown of Brisbane. And then really the whole thing, the All About Eve, not only the Betty Davis character being the featured star, but the story, I had these ideas. I had even picked out a person I thought would be great for the Eve character, who's no longer with us. And I had a great thought on taking from Sunset Boulevard, the Butler. Okay. And thinking, okay, well, I have a person here who I think looks a lot like the Butler and would be great in this role in the background, in love with the star of the show secretly. And that's the Butler from Sunset Boulevard, and that's Luther in AEW. And what's cool is we brought wrestling back to TBS and TNT, but through that character of timeless Toni Storm, we've been able to also bring wrestling finally over to TCM, to Turner Classic Movies.
I love it.
Ben Mankiewicz involved, and I'm really proud of what we created together. And I love working with Toni. Toni Storm, timeless Toni Storm, is something that was always inside of Toni Storm.
Yes.
And we're able to talk and unlock it. It's fun, kicking ideas around, but she's fantastic.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Sergio. I'm from Lancaster in California. The motivation behind just following through with this refinance was I have a baby on the way. So just wanted to get everything in order. In the past couple of years, just afraid to pull the trigger, but then it just seemed like the right time to do it. I went to multiple banks, not only the mortgage I had, but then I went to you, and then I also went to several others. And it just seemed like your team, they were just completely honest and outright. Also, all the information was just laid out for me right there and then, answering all my questions in a timely, efficient manner. Diane was just so helpful and above and beyond accessible with both texting and emails, and just any information that they needed. She would explain to me what exactly they wanted me to send, and then if there were any issues, she was able to just resolve them pretty quickly, versus other companies that sometimes it would take a couple of days to get some information. We were looking to pay down some debt, also looking into making some improvements to the home, also build up our backyard, do everything, especially for our daughter coming. By doing this cash out, it's a good amount that we're saving, between $1,000 and $1,500 a month, I would say. It helped out tremendously as well. My name's Sergio. I'm from Lancaster, California, and I saved over $1,500 a month with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.